I'm Dr. Mothan Kandula with Advent. Today, talking about sleep apnea and how it is very much like a ticking time bomb. Sleep apnea is a condition where people's throats shut down when they're sleeping at night. Many folks, everybody has heard somebody snoring next to them or down the hall. Some folks who snore don't have sleep apnea. Almost everybody who has sleep apnea snores. And what that sound is, and that sound that's getting created in the back of the throat, is the vibration of an airway that's narrowing down. If that goes to its fullest extent and completely shuts down, that's sleep apnea. So when you lie down to bed, if you're snoring, there is a significant possibility that you may be doing more than snoring. And the reality is, if you do have sleep apnea, and that's not getting treated properly, that is a ticking time bomb. What do I mean by that? When your body is laying down to go to bed, the last thing it expects, the last thing it wants, the last thing that it can handle is to be literally strangled from the inside. And that's what's happening when somebody has sleep apnea. So when that happens one time during a night, that doesn't allow you to have a proper night's sleep. For most folks who have sleep apnea, that event happens, or those events happen dozens of times, sometimes hundreds of times, not per night, per hour. That's serious. And so when that's happening to that frequency, what ends up happening is your body no longer trusts you. Your body no longer wants to go to sleep. Your body no longer is able to get the benefit of sleep, and your body ends up paying the price for that. So in the time of the day or night, when your body is supposed to be resting and recovering and recuperating and preparing for the next day, your body is fighting for its life, and that doesn't work. Those two things don't work together. So when you combine them together, what ends up happening is your body's fight or flight mechanism is always on. Your body is always prepared for battle. And what that means is that your body is stressed out consistently, constantly. And the ticking time bombs, well, what does that mean? That ticking time bomb of sleep apnea means things like heart attacks and strokes and depression and dementia and erectile dysfunction and diabetes, and I can go on and on and on. These are all things that are directly related back to sleep apnea. They don't just coexist, they're caused by that nightly attack that happens when somebody's sleeping at night. And that's serious. It's real. There's no two ways about it that those things are interrelated and connected. The good news is, if you do have sleep apnea, that there are things you can do about it. There are multiple treatments that we now have available. Many of them are office-based treatments. They all just start with the simple acknowledgement of the possibility of how significant this issue might be, and then really seeking out, what do we need to do about that? And so nowadays, if somebody comes in with symptoms that are consistent with sleep apnea, doing a home sleep study is as simple as going to sleep in your own bed at night in your own home. It couldn't be easier than that. That allows us to get a diagnosis as to what's going on and allows us to put a game plan together to figure out what should be done about it. That ticking time bomb, it is ticking, and over time, for instance, if somebody has untreated sleep apnea and we don't get to them early enough, then over time, they won't pass away from sleep apnea, but they are very likely, like 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 times more likely than the average public, to pass away from a heart attack or a stroke. Things you don't want to be messing around with. And so at the end of the day, that sleep apnea, the longer that goes on, the longer the damage, the shorter that little wick on the end of that ticking time bomb gets. And eventually it's going to go. And, there is something that's sort of too little too late. And so we don't want that. You don't want that. Nobody wants that. And so the reality from that vantage point is understanding that these things are interrelated, understanding that snoring that you're sort of being annoyed by or annoying others by might just be the tip of the iceberg of a greater problem, and acknowledging that and acknowledging the fact that we do have good ways to come after it these days and doing something about it. It really is that simple. If you knew that you were on the pathway towards having a heart attack in 5 years or 10 years, you would get off that path. And sleep apnea is putting you on that path, and you have the choice whether to stay on that path or get off the path. And so I think, unfortunately, in the world that exists around us, the typical model of healthcare doesn't properly address or explain the impact of sleep apnea, which is what I'm trying to do right now, is be very, very frank about the situation. It is that serious. It does need that, measure of attention played to it. It isn't okay for folks not to understand those things coming together and being one and the same. same. And it also isn't okay for folks to know that there are multiple solutions out there that exist to help with these issues. So sleep apnea is a very, very serious problem. It's massively undertreated. So about 80% of folks who have sleep apnea are getting treated right now in this country, which is a sad, sad shame. It's a true statement. And so really, if we can chip away at that, if we can increase awareness, if we can increase the folks that are seeking out treatment and getting treated appropriately, that means a lot of things. It means a lot of time bombs get diffused. That's a good thing. It means a lot of lives get to be led in the way that they ought to be led. That's a great thing. And so the reality is sleep apnea, ticking time bomb, no two ways about it. There really aren't too many other medical conditions that you can say that about. Sleep apnea is one of them, and it is something that really does creep up on you. So I think the other thing with sleep apnea is it's happening when somebody's sleeping at night, when their defenses are down, they're out of it, and they don't know what's going on. If a similar thing happened to somebody during the day, it would create a massive panic. If somebody walked up to you during the day when you're fully awake and put their hands around your neck and strangled you, you would bat their hands away and, you get away from that situation. If it's happening at night when you're sleeping, it's almost worse because your defenses are down and you don't know what's happening. And literally it's happening at a time where you don't know what's going on. The clues that you get from those nightly attacks happen during the day. So the fatigue that you get during the day is sleep apnea, waking up with a headache. There are multiple symptoms and signs of sleep apnea that don't necessarily show up or appear in the moment when that's happening. So sleep apnea is absolutely a ticking time bomb. It's absolutely something that can be diffused. The first step in diffusing it is understanding that it exists and understanding that it is ticking away, and that there's something that you can do about it. And so really, if you have any signs or symptoms of sleep apnea, if you snore, you're tired during the day, wake up with headaches, all of those sorts of things, any or all of those things are signs that you likely have an issue that ought to be treated. And really, the way to start treatment is with the awareness, seeking care at a place that can really handle the situation at hand and focuses on that, I think is paramount. And then getting a game plan together, putting that game plan to action, and then getting you back on that sleep journey that you're supposed to have. And really, like I said, diffusing that time bomb. All of those things can kind of come together in a nice manner. So sleep apnea, ticking time bomb, nothing good about those two facts. But the good news is there's something you can do about it. So